Hi everyone, Chef Prue here. I want to share a universal recipe with you today for how to apply LTHS into your work, relationships, and sex. I hope I've caught your attention. Before we get into the material, let's just touch base on what LTHS is again. It is an expanded view of our universe. It layers a CPU and software layer on top of our physical understanding of our universe. And it turns everything inside out. Here it is represented in a diagram and in a formula. The formula achieves the stories and seasons that we see in the diagram, and which are processed by the mind, which is responding to the stories through states in increasing layers of complexity, consciousness, and harmony. To that, I've added just different leaves here, different petals that represent the gifts, the various gifts that a mind might have. We all have different ones, and the different layers have different gifts, but ultimately they're just gifts. And within the core of the mind, it's a very simple process of perceiving, ignoring, connecting, suppressing, correcting, rejecting, deciding on interruptions that might come from any number of places depending on our gifts and story. We can see that the mind is also affected by cycles, by tastes, and by dreams, which just come from within. And they come from within because they are automatically placed there to program us to serve the higher story, automatically. And through that, we achieve a natural arrival at whatever our mission is, just simply by following our daily dreams, taste, gifts, cycles, and connections. That's why following these are so important in our daily lives. So applying that now towards work, relationships, and sex, what are the key takeaways of this? Well, first of all, bringing our lives into harmony, since we know that these increasing layers of harmony are in response to disharmony. So we're engineering disharmony out of our lives. Applying that now to these three important areas. LTHS defines each of us as sovereign, eternal, paradise God selves, God beings of consciousness, organs of a larger overall universal paradise organism. So that's a very different reality than the one we had been brought up on. And we are drifting through our universe in expanding harmony and freedom to follow those dreams, gifts, interests, tastes, and urges, which include the urge to sleep, the urge to be active, the urge to eat and drink, the urge to rest, the urge for companionship, the urge for sex, as well as following our natural mutual connections. This is a very different world than the world we live in today. Pardon me, this slide sometimes takes a little bit to move along here. There we go. So applying that now directly to the areas of interest. Applying LTHS into work means it's a free, voluntary work, no strings attached, no punishments, no contracts. It's an opportunity daily to serve, to contribute using our gifts, interests, tastes, and cycles, and connections. That's a very different world than the world we live in today. Applying it to relationships, now we're seeing each of us as sovereign and free. No one owns the other. In unconditional relationships, friendships, real friendships, no strings attached. So who, how, where, what we choose, without judgment. These things are all open and free. Like we're used to this in friendships, for instance, in all relationships. Applying it towards our daily urges, our natural needs, sleep, rest, being active, eating and drinking. Again, no strings attached. We get to enjoy these as we choose freely and in leisure without judgment or punishment in any way. You know, um, you know, in the area of sex, another natural need, no different than the others. So no different in treatment. Get to enjoy these again, who, when, where, how, without judgment or punishment, as long as it's mutual. As long as it's mutual. And the same goes for our tastes, which lead us to higher mission, and the same with our urges and cycles. Now, applying that to our current story, our current separation story, and adjusting for it, we can see that there's interrelationships now. Pretty much everything relates to whether we work or not, because work is now required instead of voluntary. It's required for shelter, food, and care. It's conditional, and it's punishable by being fired, for instance, which would result in hunger, which would result in homelessness, a lack of access to care, for instance. But then the rest of our lives are free and open as long as it's outside of our scheduled work. So there's a first change. The work is not necessarily aligned to our dreams, gifts, interests, because our natural dreams, interests may or may not be making billions of profit for billionaires today. So again, another disalignment, disharmony right now in our current separation-based story. Relationships, instead of being free and open and sovereign, there's an ownership, there's a contract, there's expectations, there's control, there's retaliations and punishments when these things are broken, and these things can lead to rejection and to things that are even worse than that. Our sleep, our rest, our natural urges are controlled by the schedules placed on us by our employers and any other obligations that might be imposed on us by the system that we live in. And our sex is now within the context of a controlled relationship. It is no longer free and open and available to us to follow our natural connections and tastes and urges. It is owned, it's controlled, it's punishable. And the same goes with our tastes and our urges. They're available to us outside of our scheduled time and within conformity. Too much out of the box and subject to judgment and rejection, and often and sometimes worse. So you can see the tremendous difference between current practices and LTHS practices in our daily life, how it applies to work, how it applies to our relationships, how it applies to sex, how it applies to our sleep habits, our free time, and how it introduces disharmony into our life by taking us off of our universally programmed dreams, gifts, tastes, urges, which are absolutely, profoundly important to us, to our communities, to the entire universe. Well, that's it. I hope you enjoyed it, got something out of it. Shoot me a little comment or do a like if you liked it. And those of you in Tucson, Arizona in December, I hope to see you at the Science of Consciousness Conference hosted by the University of Arizona. Take care.